With respect to Prop 7, I think we come out against it, and we come out against it because I question its pedigree and where it is that it's coming from as far as its underlying motivation is concerned. We've already committed to 35% by 2020. I posted the other day that no other utility in the nation had made that commitment, and somebody said, no, I want to correct you and tell you that no other utility in the world has made that commitment. So nobody can accuse us of being, of holding back as far as a commitment to renewable energy is concerned. But the mandates in Prop 7 are, I think,
draconian
and not well thought through. It basically sets up the renewable program in California for failure. And I don't think we should do that. I think what we need to do is to proceed along a very sober, realistic, yet committed path to getting to our renewable standards. As it is, anybody will tell you 35% by 2020. That is a challenge. We're going to have to build transmission in order to do that. None of us, have got our heads up in the clouds about the difficulties that lie ahead in accomplishing that. To try to put more on top of that, with some of the rather, I think, naive, enforcement mechanisms in that measure, I just think it's ill-advised. Let me address cap and trade for a second. Let me ask first, does everybody know how cap and trade would normally work? Want me to? Okay. So, but cap and trade, I like to say is not like a suit you go and pick off the rack at, Nordstrom's or something. It all depends on how it's defined, and it all depends on how it's designed. And we at LADWP, we've never said that we're against a market mechanism in order to help entities bring down their greenhouse gas emissions. We understand that the market can play an important part. But looking at the landscape of utilities here in California, and also looking at the most efficient way of doing that, and given the fact that we've taken such a leadership role in reducing our own greenhouse gas emissions, and we've committed to so many programs to do that, 35% by 2020 being one of them, an unprecedented energy efficiency budget being another one of them. Our view is that we shouldn't be forced to purchase allowances, right, as a means of forcing us to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, because we're doing it already. So what we have said is that a direct regulatory approach is the most efficient way of causing utilities to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. In other words, what I'm saying is this: if I've got the regulatory authority, Jack, for a second, to order you to walk to that door, right, it is more efficient for me to order you to walk to that door than to tell you, you know what, Jack, I'm going to keep taking money out of your pocket. I'm putting it into mine until you learn to walk to that door on your own. Because by the time you learn to walk to that door on your own, you've given me a lot of money, but you haven't changed your behavior. And by the time you start to change your behavior, and let's say you need money in order to get to that door, you won't have that much money left because you would have given it all to me. That, I think, is an inefficient model. So, what we've said is a direct regulatory approach. Tell the utilities within California, there are only 60 utilities in California, and they can be categorized in terms of their volume of greenhouse gas emissions. So you can set entity-specific caps, a declining trajectory that is viable, that is doable, and that doesn't cause sticker shock. That can be done over time. Now, if a utility fails to meet their, a particular milestone, then yes, there should be a market where that utility would have to go to purchase allowances. It would be punitive because they would be expensive, thus incentivizing everybody to meet their particular milestones. But the market shouldn't be the primary driver. Now, what is it that we've objected to? We've objected to a particular design of cap and trade, which the PUC keeps attempting to foist upon us, which is nothing but a recipe for a wealth transfer. We're not hysterical, right? We're looking out for our ratepayers while at the same time trying to make sure that we meet the mandates of AB 32 and 1368. The kind of scheme that is being put in place goes something like this. It says, okay, DWP has something like 14 million metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions. DWP has to purchase allowances which equal the entirety of that output. We're going to, now, then you have to value each metric ton at a certain value, right? If you take $50 per metric ton, that's not unreasonable. It's about $30 in Europe. And you know, people say that as soon as the market hits, it might get up to even $100. But even at $50, that means that LADWP would have to pay $700 million.
A year?
A year. Okay? Until LADWP starts to reduce that 14 million metric tons to 11, to 12, to 10, but all through that time, those metric tons would have to be purchased in the form of allowances. Okay? So that's money that would be going into this market, which could be going into producing jobs, energy efficiency, local solar, solar thermal, hydro, other renewables, but things that will benefit Los Angeles directly while changing our mix of energy, while making sure that we keep the investments local as well. Now, then the question becomes, what happens to that money? Right?
They spend it in Sacramento.
Well, okay. Either the state gobbles it up, in which case, that ain't cap and trade, that's cap and tax, right? Or it gets redistributed. And the idea of the PUC was that it would be redistributed on the basis of retail sales. So it would go in on the basis of emissions, the highest carbon entities putting it into the pot, then it would be redistributed out of the pot on the basis of retail sales. Who wins if it's redistributed on the basis of retail sales? PG&E is the biggest winner.
The big boys.
Yeah, the IOUs principally. Big, now, why? Now some of the IOUs take this very kind of, you know, high-handed attitude. They say, well, we're mostly hydro and nuclear. We don't have greenhouse gas emissions. And therefore, this wealth transfer is somehow justified. I think that's ridiculous. AB 32 wasn't put there in order to equalize rates, to take money from the mothers of East LA and give it to the shareholders of PG&E, right? Isn't that what would happen? That's not what AB 32 was intended to do. AB 32 was intended to cause greenhouse gas emissions to be reduced. So we must accept, we must acknowledge our part of it. We're a high carbon utility. We must change our profile. But that doesn't mean our money should be taken from us and given to another entity. This is why we have fought so hard. Now, the PUC went back as a result of the outcry that we started and changed its model and came back, you know, with another model. Very cute, but it's still dreadful. And so we've objected to that. But the good news here is that the final decision maker, I tempted to say the final decider, the final decision maker is the California Air Resources Board. And their scoping plan has said that they want to go 85% direct, 15% market, with energy efficiency and renewables playing the major part, which is exactly the path that we're going on. So I'm going to go and see Mary Nichols and try to work out our particular trajectory in a way that's viable, that's protective of our ratepayers, that isn't going to, you know, result in a burgeoning ECAF that won't be manageable.